Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm about to begin this meeting of the Sumner County Board of Education. Before we do, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence. I'm going to follow that by the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Anyone who would like to join me, please feel free to do so. We want to let everybody know that Mr. Graham is on his way. He's running a little bit late. He got caught in traffic. He's called a couple of the board members and they've relayed that to me. So he will be here as quickly as he can, but he is stuck in traffic on the way. He said he was speeding. Send word back to him not to speed. We'll be here when he gets here. So call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Johnson, do we have the roll?
Yes, sir.
All right. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the regular agenda. Approval of regular agenda is presented. Is there a motion? Motion by Ms. Hayes, second by? Second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is adoption of consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by?
Second.
By Ms. Andrews. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of minutes, discussion, interaction of the minutes of the April 18th regular meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Lancaster, second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion, interaction regarding the minutes of the May 16th special call meeting. Motion approved by Mr. Lancaster, second by Ms. Andrews. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is recognition of hearing and delegations. We're going to flip-flop these because we're waiting on some folks to get in here. So Mr. Graham did make it. He's here. And he didn't speed. He did not speed. So recognition of Governor's School honorees. Dr. Langford. I got to get used to calling him doctor.
I can survive if you don't, Mr. Pruitt. I had a great chance to visit with some of our parents before the meeting, and thanks, Mr. Graham brought this to our attention, that we have a lot of kids in Sumner County that have applied for and been selected for Governor's School. If you don't know much about Governor's School, this program started a number of years ago. Ms. Stamp said her daughter was one of the first ones from Sumner County to go. Station Camp High School. And so it started primarily in the fine arts, and now it's expanded. You'll hear as we talk about some of the schools that they've been in, we've got everything from fine arts to theater to choral music to emerging technology to computational physics. And what is really exciting is the Governor's School brings kids from across the state that are exemplary in the work that they do, and they get to be together on a college campus for 3 weeks, and they get to just work together and do great things and make connections so that when they're in college in a couple of years, they'll already know some people and they get to make some contact with professors. And it's really it's an exciting time for the kids. It's a huge honor for the kids. It's also a big honor for their parents. So we're very happy to honor you. And we're gonna call up school by school. So board members, if it's in your district, if you'd like to come down, Jeremy Allison will take a picture after each school. So we'll start with Liberty Creek High School. We have, if we could get Megan Dawson, Landon Graham, Madison Kemp, and Karis Richardson to come up. Mr. Graham's going to pass out we went to coins a little bit ago to give you something to take away to remember the honor of Sumner County Schools. So once they get their coins. if y'all want to squeeze it for the picture. I'm going to ask before we take pictures, I'm going to announce what each one is doing. I also want to point out that many of these students are exemplary in more than one area. You can only pick one area. So some of the kids were selected for governor's honors in 2, 3, or 4 areas. So we're going to honor them tonight for the one that they were selected for, but many of them had numerous recognitions. So emerging technologies, Megan Dawson. Musical theater, Landon Graham. Scientific exploration of Tennessee Heritage, Madison Kemp. And humanities, Karis Richardson. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, congratulations. Yeah, go ahead.
I think we have 8 and all going to be here from Merrill High.
If we could have our Merrill High delegation come forward. We have at least one student from Merrill High that couldn't make it tonight because they're in the state soccer tournament. So we're excited for Merrill High and hope today goes well for them. All right, science and engineering for Merrill High. Lindy Shoulders, Meg Dixit, Ava Wee, David Lyles. Emerging technologies, Will Dunkel, and then computational physics, Grant Parsons and Sydney Bergner. And then technological innovation and business leadership, Mary Scarlett Jones. Let's say congratulations. All right, congratulations, Merrill High. All right, if we could have our Hendersonville High School delegation come forward. I would encourage everybody too, if you get a chance, if you go on district Facebook pages, some of the, especially the artwork and fine arts that are featured there is really exemplary in our schools. So Hendersonville High School, we have Rachel Heiss, Anna McDowell, Isaac Staples, Caleb Stubblefield, Matthew Jackson, and Nova Melvin. So let me call out their different areas. For the arts, Rachel Heiss, Anna McDowell, Isaac Staples, and Caleb Stubblefield. For science and engineering, Matthew Jackson, and for computational physics, Nova Melvin. Congratulations, our Hendersonville team. You have to wait 1 second. Oh, good. So good news is Station Camp soccer won earlier today. Merrill High just won. So we're 2-0 today at state tournament. All right, if we could have our Station Camp delegation come forward. All right, so for international studies, Hayat Yassar. For the arts, Carol Ann Chambliss, Emma Mersigan, Grayson Mize, Juan Pahoy, Lily Suit, and Mariah Williams. Congratulations. All right, congratulations, Station 10. All right, Gallatin High School. Is Sydney here? Yeah, Sydney, come on up. Gallatin High School. Sorry. Go ahead, Andy. Yeah. Agricultural Sciences, Miss Sydney Cothran. Congratulations, Sydney. All right, we have our delegation from Portland High School. All right, humanities, we have Austin Evans, and two choice. Catherine was selected for Tennessee Heritage and Science and Engineering and accepted Science and Engineering. So Catherine, congratulations. Austin, congratulations. White House High School. Every once in a while. For White House High School, Technological Innovation and Business Leadership, Miss Hannah Metter. And for the arts, Miss Isabella Jones. Congratulations. All right, congratulations, White House. Our Beach High School delegation is Grace Johnson. Yeah, Grace, come on up. Grace Johnson is going to Governor's School for Agricultural Sciences. Grace, congratulations. All right, and oh, sorry, leave the picture. Sorry. All right, Grace Johnson, Beach High School. Congratulations. And again, just a phenomenal honor and congratulations from the Sumner County School Board. We see the work that our kids do every day that's just exceptional. It's going to be great that the entire state of Tennessee, across all of our universities, are going to get to see the great work that our kids do every day. So congratulations, parents, and congratulations to our students. Now, I'll tell you that you're welcome to stay for the rest of the board meeting, but you're also welcome to leave. Congratulations. They're gonna. It's pretty cool.
All right, Dr. Langford, continue.
All right, we're going to have Mr. Smart come up, and he's going to introduce and explain Portland Esports team and the success that they've had. You're going to be stunned at what they've won and accomplished, and it's another area where our kids are just excelling and doing exceptional things. And I'm not going to steal any thunder. I'm going to let Mr. Smart do it because he'll do it much better, and it's exciting. Thank you.
I do want to say this real quick. I've been at the state tournament for track and field, and there's a lot going on today. A lot of these students don't get recognized because their peers are already out of school. The senior class is gone, and a lot of these students, other peers are hopefully exempt from the exams and not at school. But we had Seth Rippey placed 7th in the discus for the state of Tennessee. We had Ben Bradley, who actually finished at the highest jump in the state, but when it came down to tiebreakers, he finished 3rd, which these are all, it's been a long time since we've had state representatives at Portland. And then when I left and ran up here real quick, Will Hester was still running in the 110 hurdles and the 300. So I do want to make sure that those guys get recognized since their peers are kind of out. Esports, I get this question all the time. What in the world is this? What have y'all done? All kinds. So I've got two of our 3 players here with me. I've got Tony and Caleb. Jackson didn't get a chance to make it, but Tony was in I teach marketing. Tony was in my class 2 years ago, and we were talking about something in class about how you can market some type of new athletes. And somebody whispered and said, "Hey, Tony's like one of the top 100 players in the world in this thing called Rocket League." And I was like, "Oh, whatever." They tell us this all the time. They're like, "We're 7th grade, this and all that." I'm like, "Okay." Well, they came to me this year, and Tony said, "No, we would really like to compete in this." So I went to Mr. Woods, or Dr. Woods, and I said, "Hey, I think this is something that we can tie in CTE with our athletic department." I do CTE, and I'm also the athletic director. And he said, "Let's go for it." Dr. Woods is great about wanting to provide ways for students to compete so that we can coach them through it, win or lose. Well, Tony and then we signed up for Rocket League in Play VS, which is the platform that we play on. Lo and behold, they won the whole thing. So they are the United States Central Region champions, the only team out of the Eastern region and the Southern region that were undefeated. And then we got knocked out of the Play VS Cup, which is the national tournament, last week. So they're top 32 teams in the United States. But these 2 gentlemen did a fantastic job. With that, when we had the 8th grade registration, we now have 30 to 40 kids that want to play on our esports team. So it's Madden, it's let's see, Madden, NBA 2K, Smash Brothers, Rocket League, and I think there's 2 more, Splatoon, and there's 1 more that they can play in next year. But there's a fall league and a spring league, and then you'll see that popping up if you follow us on our social media stuff with our sports athletic department. So if y'all want to come up here, guys. And,
Brandon, I have a question before you leave. Can you explain though exactly how they compete?
Okay. What they do is they're in the central region. There are 98 teams across the central region that does not offer it as a state championship. Mississippi, Kentucky, Alabama, they all offer esports as an actual sanctioned sport, like through the TSSAA. So they get state championship trophies and all that type of stuff. Arkansas is another one. if the state doesn't provide that, then they throw everybody else in. So it's Missouri, us, Kansas, Minnesota. There were several teams out of the central region. We all played. Basically, they have this algorithm that if you win one, it's like strength of schedule, if you're familiar with that with athletics. So as long as you keep winning, you keep playing the better teams. And then we went undefeated through that. And they take the top 16 teams for the central region. They take the top 16 teams. They won that tournament, finished undefeated. And then after that, they have the Play BS tournament, which takes every state champion in the fall and the spring, and then every Eastern, Central, and Western champion, and throw them all in together.
So they just play like one, like this group here is playing Madden, this one's playing Smash Brothers, or they like randomly go, you're going to compete against using this game.
You sign up for, sorry about that, you sign up for each individual area. So these guys only play Rocket League. They can play all of the different games, but we just play Rocket League this year. Next year we'll have an entire team build out full. And then we're trying to raise money now for the fancy computers.
Is it at all? Is it incorporated within a class, or is it all 100% extracurricular?
100% extracurricular, just like any other athletics. We would love if y'all would like to add that as a fourth period athletics. We play at 4 o'clock, so they'll dismiss from school. Tony actually plays on the football team, so he would go to practice, run home real quick, play, come back, and go back to practice during spring practice. We made sure that the way that our bye week fell was during our one of our 2 weeks for football. But Tony plays both football and does esports.
Mr. Lancaster.
Yeah. Could y'all offer some training for for some older people that that you grew up with video games, but now they get online and try to play some of these games, and these young kids make fun of them?
When they came to me and they talked to me, I'm like, this is none of the games that we played. I don't know what Rocket League is. It's basically 3-on-3 soccer with a car pushing a ball. If you're not familiar with that, and it's in a cage and all that type of stuff. Really cool. We were going to our DECA international competition, and they were in the semifinals. So I'm trying to check in 15 kids while I'm watching them online, and the Frontier person's like, "Will you come on?" I'm like, "We're in the middle of this." And then for the championship, we were in the hotel. Kind of everybody. It really took off. It was awesome to watch the parents, to watch on our Facebook. Hey, people catching us in the community, asking how the team was doing. Other students getting involved with it, and then watching it online. So it was pretty cool to watch it organically grow like that.
All right. Thank you very much, and congratulations, y'all. All right, next item on the agenda is executive session. I'll call the meeting to recess, and board members will meet right over there in that office there. All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. We've got everybody back in their places now. Next item on the agenda is reports from the director and Mr. Justin Alexander, or is it correct, Mr. Ott?
Mr. Ott?
Mr. Ott.
Yeah, Mr. Ott's going to tee it up.
Okay.
All right, so thank you, Chairman Brewer, and the rest of the board members. So very excited to tell you that we're no longer self-reliant upon colleges and universities to educate and put teachers in our classrooms anymore. So we have a brand new program, and I'm going to bring Justin Alexander up here to kind of roll this out to you, but we have our own EPP program, Educator Prep program now in Sumter County Schools. Our first cohort will kick off here pretty soon, but Justin wants to let you know about all the steps and processes that we've gone through for the last 2 years? 2 years to get this rolled out here in the district. So, Justin?
I think they got it loading up there for you. Mariah, do you want to pass those little one-pagers out there? Good evening. I'll try to go quick, so saving some time here. We're pretty excited about this program. We're one of 3 in the state. Anytime you can say you're one of 3, it's a pretty big deal. The idea for this started more than 2 years ago. In 2018, myself and Marla Pike here were at a state conference, and they were presenting, the Tennessee Department of Education was presenting an idea that maybe one day districts could license their own teachers and what that would look like. And so that got us to thinking. We did some research into that. We kind of looked around. We decided this might be something we want to look at. Rutherford County was on down that road, so we met with them, looked at their process, and we thought we can do this. So we started really developing that application in 2020. We all remember 2020, so there were some hangups there, you may remember. Some application writing happened in 2021. We submitted our first application in 2021, and then we went through a substantial feedback process with the Tennessee Department of Education. We had to meet every requirement that a school of education meets on a college campus to be approved as this program. So we got that approval this year, and we were really excited about that. And there's that slide for you to go through there. We can go ahead and go to the next one. We're good. So here is kind of where we're starting. Is this school year, the candidates will start in the program in July. It will be an intense start for them, and we're starting with the area of CTE occupational licensure. That was at the direction of the state, being something that they had a plan and a reason that they wanted school systems to step in and start with that particular area. So that's where we started. And we have, when I did this presentation, we had 10 of 15 spots filled. We're now at 13 of 15 spots filled for this particular cohort. And we are excited to get these folks in. I want to introduce Mariah Therese to you as well. And she will be the lead teacher in our EPP program. As we go through, Mariah has a lot of CTE teaching experience, and she is currently working with all of our CTE teachers in the county already, especially focusing on coaching the new CTE teachers, which we're going to fold about 9 of those into this program at no charge to that particular teacher. So now, why is this important for that occupational branch? Well, it's really hard to convince a welder to stop making what they're making and then come and pay 10 grand to go to school and work on a teacher's salary. That's hard to sell, even if they really want to do it. But now we can take out that 10 grand charge and we can say, you work with us, we'll take you through the program, you'll be a fully licensed teacher by the end of it. And so that's exciting news for us as a county, as well as those teacher prospects. We can go ahead and change to the next slide as well. So the content of the program focuses on the area in front of you, those 4 areas. It's very intentional with instructional planning, student engagement, assessment and feedback, and classroom culture. It will take them through, essentially like they're in a school of education, how to be a teacher. So that's what the curriculum is set up for. That's how it will be taught. And then on top of all that, Mariah and I both will coach those teachers along the way. So the way our program is designed and was approved by the state was to be a full coaching model which matches what our instruction department does on the coaching side of things. So we want to be able to see what they learn in class, in the classroom. We will observe and coach off of that, and that's how they will earn credit, so to speak, within the program and move on through the program. So what it looks like, just for time commitment, it is a 2-year program. Year 1 is listed there for you. It's a 5-day summer intensive, and we have those dates listed where we're starting this year, July 22nd, 25th, 27th through 29th. And then once they get into the school year, it's 1 night a month. They'll come in for 1 night a month, and they will have a session every time they come in, and then we will coach in between those sessions. So whatever they learn in the session and the assigned work, we'll see them perform that in the classroom setting, and we will coach and have feedback between sessions on that. Then they will end that first year with another 5-day intensive piece that's a reflection on what they've done in the first year of the program and kind of setting up for year 2. Year 2 goes back to the full, you drop those 5-day intensives, and it's the monthly sessions until they're ready. So that's what the program looks like. So for 24-25 school year, this is how we can grow. So we're starting, like I said, with CTE occupational, but how we can grow is we can grow into the CTE academic area, which would cover all of our CTE licensure areas. And then we can also grow in 612 math and science. We can apply for those programs as well. We are partnering with some of that work with Rutherford County. They're already doing that. They're the only other county that is doing the math and science piece. But we're working with them, and it's the same curriculum group that we're using to do this occupational piece. So it's no new added information or things that we're not going to experience in this first run anyway. It's the same group. And then in 25 and 26, assuming all things go well, Southern Region Educational Board, which is the curriculum provider, have asked us to partner with them for an ELA pilot as well, to get ELA licensure as part of something that we could offer. So if you're doing the calculation on that, if everything goes according to plan and is approved, by 25-26, we could license teachers ourselves in all core areas, 612, and all CT areas, which would be a substantial recruiting gain for us. And then they're looking at things 26 and 27 beyond that would stretch into elementary schools, but they don't have firm plans for that yet. So they have an eye on it, but nothing that I can deliver tonight to you. Do we have anything after that one? Okay, nothing after that one. I think I hit everything on the sheet as well. This does involve a work agreement with the folks that we're bringing into this, since we're not charging them. They're going to sign on to work with us for 3 years after they complete the program, so that we get that commitment from them, so they can have a little bit in the game as well, instead of just, here, come get your license and then go somewhere else. We don't want that to happen. So
We got a
want to
question
keep
for Ms. Andrews.
Actually, that was answering one of the questions that I have is this kind of like an apprenticeship type program where they would be required to sign a commitment to work for so long. So that is good to hear. So tell me what the difference is too between like this and what we are currently doing with Lipscomb and so forth. Because I think with Lipscomb right now they have to have a bachelor's degree to then get their master's, and they're going kind of an embedded teaching type of path, where this,
Right.
I know it's CTE, so I know it's different than the core curriculum, but do they have to already have, I would assume if it's CTE, it's an industry certificate possibly versus.
Yeah, there are different qualifications, and I listed the Lipscomb Grow Your Own program, actually the first on that thing, on the sheet that you have in front of you. We have 18 candidates in that right now. We started them in January in an apprenticeship mode, which meant they're a teacher assistant in our system, and that's a modality of the grant. The grant requires that, so they have to serve 2 semesters before they can be a teacher of record. So their 2 semesters, if they started in January, are the semester we just completed, and then they will also work in summer scholars to satisfy that second semester. So we've actually hired 16 of those 18 as teachers for next school year. They already have a place to go in a classroom for next school year. Now the difference is, for the Lipscomb program, is you are bound by every qualification that the grant has. So they have to do a lot of testing, as far as praxis testing. They have to content praxis test. They have to test at the end for EdTPA and different things of that come along with finishing an ed prep program, a traditional one. So they will have to do all of those things. When we have candidates go through, if they have currently right now, if they meet the qualification, the industry standard qualification for their area, they won't have to do any of that testing. So we will be able to put them immediately in the classroom. They don't have to serve as a TA. So you could drop the TA time, you drop the testing requirements, because our program doesn't rely on the grant funding.
So when they complete the program and they are licensed as a teacher through Sumner County, I mean, they would get a certificate. It's through Sumner County Schools. I mean, like, if they were after 3, what I'm thinking is after 3 years, and if they were to decide they wanted to, go to a different district or something like that, they ask for transcripts. So how does that work?
So we won't actually.
Them, and I hope they don't. But
Yes.
I'm just curious.
We won't actually issue them a license. We will. The Sumner County EPP will apply for their license with the state of Tennessee. So they will have a full state of Tennessee teaching license. And they will keep up with, we have to turn in all the things that they submitted to qualify under all the qualification pieces. We have to turn all that in up front. And so they keep all of that information.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work on
All
that.
your hard work. It's been a long process. And,
Yes, sir.
You
Been
know,
good.
obviously, Justin gave an example
about CTE, and you can imagine, as he was talking through that, you know, how much that's going to help us. But certainly if you grow the program into hard-to-fill math and science positions, it's a real game changer as we see a shift post-pandemic in number of pre-service degree candidates from universities. So thank you, Justin. That's good.
Yep, thank you very much. And Dr. Langford's up next.
All right, I'm going to try to give you everything you want to know about third grade retention very quickly. So if you have any questions, stop me, but we'll try to go pretty quickly through. I'm sure you've had a lot of questions over the weekend. Our data dropped, I think, just before 4 o'clock on Friday. And I want to give a shout out to Ms. Hessen and her team because they have been cranking data. Also, Ms. Gilliland, Mary Stewart, our data team, they've worked tirelessly to get the data where we can use it and then to be able to share with you where we are. So just to give you a little bit of a snapshot, state of Tennessee, statewide was at 40% at expectation, grade level expectation or above. We're at 48.9%. Historically, we've gone since COVID, we were at 42.9, then 44.8, then 48.9. So about a 4.1% increase district-wide in third grade ELA scores. So what does this mean? So we had 51.1% that were in that 1 or 2 category, approaching or below expectations. So of those kids, 421 were eligible for an immediate exemption from third grade retention law. These are kids that have an IP, EL, 504 for different conditions that affect their learning, manifestations of a learning disability, like a concern of learning disability, dyslexia, things like that. Another 486, and this is a big number we'll come back to in a minute, another 486 scored 40% or higher on the Easy CBM screener. Remember, the Easy CBM screener is a nationally normed for the age test to measure reading skills. So that's a nationwide test. 50% is on grade level among your peers. So we had 486 that were 40% or above that qualify for an appeal. So that means they were a 2 that could appeal based on their screener. All right, so kids that need additional intervention, we have 182 that are going to need to do summer school and tutoring, and then 86 are going to need to do summer school or tutoring. Now, most likely, this 86 number is going to go down. Kids are retesting. They started yesterday. They've been testing today. Most are either done or close to done. The scores are coming back instantly. As soon as they hit submit, the score comes back. And we're seeing some movement. I started putting this together this morning, so I haven't gone back through and combed through all the data that was entered today. I'll show you, like, this is what our spreadsheet that Ms. Hessen and her team built. It doesn't have student names on it, obviously, but this is how they're tracking this, and this is only part of it. This is for all 2,300 third graders in the district. So you see a spring composite, a raw ELA TCAP score, their retake, whether they're a retention candidate, whether they've completed the waiver, whether they've registered for summer scholars. If you could scroll, this is a screenshot. If you could scroll on out, you would see 90% attendance at summer scholar, adequate progress at summer scholars, tutoring. There's 5 or 6 more layers out there. We're tracking that for each third grader district-wide. Now, I will tell you that their team has done phenomenal work, but I will tell you that there's some pretty interesting insights in this, and the fact that we're seeing a lot of our third graders. For instance, 58.4% of our kids that scored a 2 are reading at or above grade level, and 38.8% of our 2s are reading at the 60 to 70 plus on the reading screener. So there's some work for us to do to dig in and try to figure out exactly, how we can. Obviously, we want our kids to, our goal next year would be to hit that 52, 53 at least, if not higher. These are, it's a celebration for the work that our teachers have done, because these are the kids that were most affected by COVID. They lost 9 weeks of kindergarten. They had an unusual first grade year with COVID disruption, even when we were in school. So to see where they are is really, I'm really impressed with the work that our schools have done. Our principals and teachers have done an outstanding job of just working daily to help our kids, and it shows. Ms. Hessen passed out a packet. This is the communication that has gone home, and so we've tried to make it as clear. Anytime you involve a flow chart, it's hard to imagine that that's exactly clear, but it's pretty clear, and walks parents through what their choices are, even down to the last page. If your child was proficient, then you would have gotten the last page, that no further action is required. We've heard a lot of positive comments from parents that have appreciated the conversations around knowing where their kids are. But here's what's next for us over the next week or two. So next year, the law changes and we can file the appeal for students. This year, parents have to file the appeal themselves. We don't have visibility to see if the appeal's been filed. Only the Department of Education, unless they change, only the Department of Education can see that. So we are hopeful our principals and schools are going to reach out and contact these 486 the families of these 486 kids frequently over the next 7 to 10 days to try to make sure that we don't have any, especially for the, we just want them to have the most options to move on to 4th grade, whether that's summer scholars or tutoring. But we want them, if they don't have to do that, we want them to go ahead and fill out the waiver so they can move on to 4th grade. We're fine if they want to come to summer scholars. We're absolutely fine with that. But we want them to not have to be under, the 90% attendance, the retake, the tutoring in the fall possibly. So this communication with parents is key. We've got a great program. Our principals are on board. They've helped develop everything that you've seen tonight. But that's kind of a quick version. And again, I'll know more in a week or two. We can come back in June. We'll be able to give you a fuller explication of what we're seeing in the data. This is what we're able to give right now after just having the data for a couple days.
Mr. Lancaster.
So these 486, we're saying exempt. Are we basically saying that if they appeal, we think they will be granted an appeal?
Yeah, they can. This is the waiver group. The exemptions are kids that are automatically exempt because of special ed, EL, all those rules that are contained in the law.
Okay, that's the 421.
That's
on a previous slide.
It's a little different. It's that's the 421. Yeah.
Okay.
The 486 on the waiver, these are kids that scored a 2 that are above 40% on the screener. Now, what we have been told is that it's a guarantee if you're above 40% that they're going to grant the waiver. And I'll be honest, I don't know how they could check this because they don't have this data that we have, and they, I don't know how they would investigate to see what's on there. I think they're going to grant the plan, at least what's been communicated to us, is that if you're 40% or higher on Easy CBM, that they, or we use Easy CBM, some other districts use Ames Web. If you're 40% or higher on the screener, then you get the appeal. There are some other appeals that parents can file. We had a kid that broke his arm at baseball the night before the TCAP. They'll be able to file an appeal, and they'll probably get that. If a student had a death in the family or something like that, there are some other appeals, but those appeals are going to be really tight. So this number might go to 495 or something, or excuse me, 481 or something. It's not going to be. There aren't going to be a lot of appeals that are granted outside of the Easy CBM score. I don't think.
So, including the 48.9% that were proficient, that does not include the ones that were exempt from it altogether, right? The IEP plan kids.
That's all students. It does. It includes.
That's what I'm saying. The 48.9. I guess I said that wrong, but they're part of the total population.
Yes, sir. They're part of. Everybody listed here is part of the 51.1.
Gotcha.
That was a 1 or a 2.
So we only have 268 students in third grade that will need, unless some of these that don't file the waiver.
I think it'll actually be lower if everybody files the waiver, but if everybody, do I think that everybody will file the waiver? Probably not, but we're going to do everything in our power to get the waiver. But it's much more manageable. Like, I thought this number back in January, February would be around 400 or 500. So this is a lot more manageable. I still have some concerns about meeting the ratios on the 3-to-1 tutoring. I think that's going to be a challenge for us. We're still waiting on some clarification on whether we can catch some of the tutoring during the school day, because you're going to have some kids it's just not possible for them to be there before or after school. So hopefully we'll get a little flexibility on that. There was a state board meeting on Friday that I need to review. I want to really, I skimmed it, but I read a newspaper article about it, but I want to go through and watch it and pull out to see if there's anything that I missed on it.
And the parents of the students that are these waivers, I know you're saying they're being contacted. Do they need to, I know we're saying that they have to do this on their own, but I mean, can they go to the school and say, hey, can you just walk me through?
They absolutely could,
Yeah.
but we can't, the law next year changes, and we will be able to send a letter home to parents and they can sign, and then we can do the waiver for them. This year they have to do it. The problem, if you get a contact, because this has already gone out, if you get a contact, I scan the QR code and the waiver doesn't work. The state's not going to turn on the form to do the waiver until May 30th. So,
And when is the deadline to fill it out?
is it June 6th? June 5th. June 5th.
So
We're
they
having
got
an intense week of
6
filling out
days
forms.
to,
June 13th, excuse me. 14 days, June 13th.
okay. Okay.
And we will have at the sites, we will have the site leads at the schools, and then our principals and everybody, this isn't going to be something where we're going to send out a remind and say do this. We'll contact each of these 486 repeatedly and encourage them to fill out the waiver form. I wish it was something that was on now so we could go ahead and get it knocked out while the kids are in school.
And did they not pass, did the state not pass a law or a amendment to this so that next year these are not that we can do them, but there's also going to look at a secondary screener, right?
They're adding, in addition to the Easy CBM screener that we do now, they're adding, from what I hear, it's AIMSweb, and it's a benchmark like we currently give. The screener is skills based. The other one is standards based. So that one would be AIMSweb, from what I hear. We haven't seen anything official, but what I hear is it's AIMSweb, and that we should have that. The state is going to actually contract and provide that next year. So it'll be like a mini TCAP.
So in the future, then these kids will have taken that and TCAP, and if they've made 40 or above or whatever the threshold is next year, that'll just automatically be an either or type thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I think probably we haven't, we got to see all the details. Probably we typically do a winter benchmark on our own, and then we do a spring benchmark. Obviously, if we're giving third graders a state benchmark, we're not going to test them twice, and that's just overkill. Too much testing and not enough time for teaching. So we'll probably stick to just the two if we have to mix between the one we currently do and then the one that the state provides.
Ms. Andrews?
Okay, a couple of questions. The waiver. So just so parents understand that if they submit the waiver, if they say, hey, my kids meet these benchmarks and I want to just let them know they're going on to fourth grade. They can submit the waiver if they go, but obviously they're kind of teetering there. We want to go ahead and send them to summer scholars. They're still welcome to come. They just don't have to meet all of the thresholds. That it's not as,
Right.
I don't want to say it's not as rigorous, but it's just not as stringent on them as far as, the pressure's not as much, I guess, on them for summer scholars as it would be maybe some other
Right.
students.
I think the way to think about it is the program is going to be just as rigorous. It's going to be the same for everybody. But if you're not, if you file for the waiver, you're not. Summer scholars remains voluntary as it's been for the last 3 summers.
But then I think they file the waiver that they're not then opting out of summer scholars.
Yes, they can still attend. So we'd love to have them because obviously even following the waiver, they will benefit from the program. We'd love for every one of them to come. We're staffed for every one of them to come.
So just want parents to understand that the waiver is really just so that
That's a
clarify
good-
that they're
yeah.
going to fourth grade, not that they're waiving
Right.
out of summer scholars as
Right.
well.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Can you tell us too with these numbers how we compare to other districts? Is there any data on that? Have we looked at any of that? That's something I have been asked recently.
Let me just say that there's a lot of different ways districts have reported this. You know, Dixon County said 55%. I think Murray County said 70%. Some others have reported, you know, like if you look at ours, we are at 11.6%. If everybody fills out the waiver, 11.6% of our third graders. So, you know, we have 51.1%. I just believe we tell the truth about our numbers. 51.1% is our number that didn't reach proficiency this year. But when you subtract out special ed, EL, the others, and then the interventions that based on the screener, we're at 11.6%.
Will there at some point be data, like I guess maybe from the state or so forth, where, because I know now you can kind of compare districts that includes that type of information, or, like, I mean, I know that it takes a little while for them to get composite scores and so forth, so,
Yeah.
but will there at some point, like even maybe by this fall, where we can say, hey, this is,
I think that I saw something really late today that was from TDOE that mentioned, and I'm sure they have gotten many, many, many questions over since last Friday. But I think I saw something today that they were going to release some district level data for all school districts tomorrow.
okay.
Now, I don't think it said how granular that would be, so I don't know. But I do believe there will be some information that the state will post tomorrow for every district. I don't know.
Okay, I just have had
Don't
some
know to
people
what
that
extent that
are
would be.
just curious.
Yeah.
We see our numbers and they're like, well, this is great, but what does that mean in relation to kind of as a state? Last question is, when will parents get their students' full report for how they did across the board on TCAP?
So this is rushed. It
Right.
does score everything, including writing. All the other stuff is being graded and assessed right now. So usually we get all the data back the first week of, you know, between July 1st and July 10th or 11th. It's then embargoed for about 2 or 3 weeks. So normally we're able to send student reports home. We usually have them the first week of school, but we usually wait until the second week of school because classes are moving around. It's hard to track the papers and everything. So usually by mid-August we sent the reports
Well, I know
home.
there's a portal as well that if you've got your student-specific number that you can log in. So is that July? I was thinking it was June. So is it July that maybe they can start checking to see?
Usually it's right around late July, 1st of August when that
Okay.
portal opens, and then we usually send the paper copy home in around the second week of August.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, I've just got a quick question. One of your comments was that, you know, we have 51.1% of the students that didn't reach proficiency. Out of that 51.1%, 486 of those students that are eligible for the waiver, if not for this TCAP test, based on the Easy CBM score, actually would have met the proficiency standards, correct?
Well, the proficiency is based on standards. So if you're asking, like, it's 2 different tests, in terms of what nationally is considered a reading level it's age-based, so for an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old at this level, then anything above 50% is grade level. So, you know, overall we have about 67% of our students are on Easy CBM are reading at or above grade level. And we have 40.1% of our students at the 70 percentile or higher.
And I guess that's what I'm asking is that, you know, this is based on one test on one day essentially, the 51.1%. We have a number of these students that based on the Easy CBM scores that exceeded those benchmark or those requirements for the TCAP scores that now are in, you know, if they can't get the waiver filled out, may have to repeat third grade. You know, my question on the waiver is the waiver I assume going to be an online form?
Yes.
Okay. Do we plan to have any open lab days at the schools to help assist any parents that may need support in filling that out? I mean, I know.
think that's, I think that'd be a great idea. I think what we could do is open the Summer Scholars sites and allow parents to come in. I mean, we've got devices, we've got support. The site leads, the principals that are there would be able to help a parent fill that, so we can absolutely offer that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Brewer. Dr. Langford, at the end of the summer reads program, there is a requirement they have to follow the measures of 90% attendance. Then it has an adequate growth. So there has to be some kind of scoring. What are we going to use to assess adequate growth?
So they will take a test just like the retest. Okay, not the same questions, but same format. It's an abbreviated TN Ready with no writing. And it'll be online just like the ones that are retesting right now. And they have to show 5% growth to show adequate growth. And I'm glad on the attendance, the 90% attendance is for our program would be about 1.5, 1.6 days. So, Mr. Canada, you had asked earlier about makeups. We're going to roll, Ms. Skinner, it's three Fridays, and then are we going to do the Saturday? Yeah. So what we're looking at is we've got a 4-week program, 4 days a week. We're going to have 3 Fridays at we won't be able to run transportation, and parents will be responsible to get their children there, but we'll run 3 different locations in the different geographic areas of the county, and you can make up a day on those Fridays, and then what we're going to try to do is catch a Saturday so you can get the 4th day, because just to try to accommodate if kids have a custody thing where they have to go out of town, or they've got Little League World Series, or whatever else might happen, just to try to give a little bit of flexibility, especially since so many of our parents are just finding out about this since January, or we've tried to communicate as much as possible. There's some that are just finding out now, so we want to try to help parents out as much as possible.
Seems like that's all. Thank you, Dr. Langford.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is new business. Oh,
Go ahead. Will we get a school report?
We can get that, yes, sir.
next item on the agenda is discussion and interaction regarding the general purpose budget for fiscal year 2023, 2024. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by? Second by Ms. Hayes. Discussion. Mr. King, you look like you're fixing to push your button.
I guess. Okay, so I had spoken to Dr. Phillips earlier today. Thank you for that call. I just want to get some more clarification. Page 8 of the packet, I'm just looking at it. It says restricted reserves and/or fund balances, and that item, that number there is $50,706,450. Does that number represent where we ended this past fiscal year? In other words, that's the money that we have left over, I guess is what I'm saying. Would that be the projected fund balance going forward into 23, 24? Do you see where I'm asking? It's restricted reserves and/or fund balances.
Yeah.
Page 8.
Are you asking about the 50,000?
Yeah, 50 million. I'm just wondering what is that number?
Yeah, let me pull up my work paper. Yeah, so as we kind of talked before, the 3.2 million is estimated. So a lot of these, we aren't at the year end, right? So I'm trying to project out all revenues and all expenditures for certain items, and all items in our budget. So that 3.2 million is where I estimate, it's a estimate of where our reserve balance will be for daycares, grants, anything that's restricted by law that we can't spend for any other purpose besides that.
Well, I'm asking about the 50 million at the bottom.
Right, so that's a total.
You see, that's a total.
That's a total.
I know that's the total of those lines, but is that where all of that, I guess what I'm asking is that where we ended the year? Is that how much money we have at the end of
We haven't ended the year. That's
I'm
what
saying-
we're showing.
Okay.
That's what we're showing in the proposed budget for next year. We're showing that just in those particular lines that you see captured there.
Right.
That's why earlier today, when we talked on the phone, I mentioned this to you, and I said, if you want to look at what we would think would be fund balance in regard to how that looks, Amanda, is you've got in your budget presentation, you have 27 million, you see that in this line. Then you have 37 million that we had, and then the 7 million that's undesignated, you also see that here. And then Mr. Lancaster asked me a question about that earlier due to the $22 million potential expenditure for dollars in capital, right? And you may not expend all of that in next year's cycle.
So the 37 million, what does that number represent? So on this page here, we've got at the top, we've got the undesignated fund balance. We've got the mandatory amount of 16 million. We've got the requested assigned amount of 27 million. And then we have the projected undesignated fund balance of 37 million. And then when you add all that up, that's 80,632,000. So I'm just wondering, that's a lot more than that 50 million. So I'm just wondering, where are we getting this 30 on this page? Where are we getting that 37 million number? Like in this blue packet, I guess.
That's the projected undesignated fund balance without the capital. And so you see from there that we're taking that capital out. That would reduce that by the 22 million. And also you're balancing your revenue versus expenditures with the 7.8, leaving you the undesignated at the end of the year. If every penny was spent, everything was perfect, every revenue came in identical, and I forecasted perfectly, that would be your expected fund balance. Does that make sense?
That 37 million would be the expected fund balance?
The 7 million be your projected unbudgeted fund balance.
The 7 million, okay.
That would be with everything else. That would be the unbudgeted fund balance. But the year ends, you take your beginning fund balance plus revenues minus expenditures throughout the year. And so over the past several years, our revenue has come in much higher than was given to us and budgeted, and our expenditures at times have come in lower in certain lines. And so as your fund balance is like it's a moving. It's not just this number. It's a living, breathing number that changes every day when we spend money and we receive revenue. So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
The 37 million, where did it come from?
So every year when you have revenue for years, when you have revenue and then we plan budgets for the last, my whole time here, when I arrived, we had $1 above the mandatory fund balance. And so as that revenue comes in and then we budget into future years and close the books, and then that happens post June 30th, obviously, because we have to pay bills for that fiscal year through June 30th, then once we reconcile that and post it, which usually happens by law in September, by September 1st. So once that happens, then any of those dollars that weren't expended in the prior year's budget would automatically go to fund balance. And so the next year you would see that. And then the board would make decisions about how to budget those dollars.
So that's unspent money from previous years.
That's right. It's dollars that are currently fund balance available for spending in future budgets.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily unspent dollars in the fact that it could be additional revenue that was never amended in to be able to be spent. So it could be expenditure savings that we have. It also could be, for example, in the past, like last year, our revenue came in significantly higher than what we were given, and so therefore what we were budgeted. Same thing with $16 million. Last year, $20 million. Our revenue came in higher. Property tax, sales tax, those numbers are coming significantly higher. And then also, we do a good job. We really try hard to be good stewards of expenditures. And so we're going to have expenditures come in under budget. You know, I individually budget over 1,200 lines. That's not including all of the other, like if we pulled a full financials, you know, there's like 30,000 actual lines of data. And so there's going to be savings, and there's going to be, hey, overspending. That's why you see amendments. We're asking to move some funds from here to there because electricity is coming higher. So all of those are, you know, moving with business.
So how do we know?
I also want to mention this point too.
Sure.
This is something that I think is relevant. As you go throughout the year, your revenue is going to come in, of course, obviously from a cash flow standpoint. You capture most of your local taxes. Obviously, property tax is always going to be in a bulk run of the majority in 3 months, right? When mortgage companies pay or when individuals go in and pay. Sales tax obviously is monthly in arrears, obviously, once it's sent to the state and then sent back. But just in general terms, we don't amend revenue into our budget that throughout the year exceeds what's in the budget. In other words, if you say, well, we're going to capture $126,405,000 from the county, and we finally go above that number in June, right, of the fiscal year, and we wind up receiving $135 million, we wouldn't necessarily make an amendment to add in that revenue. It would be captured in fund balance as the books for that fiscal year close after post June 30. And so that would show up. It would show up in fund balance for the following year.
Okay, so
but you always do expenditure changes.
Right. So that 37 million is showing up. Is it showing up somewhere in this in our packet anywhere? I'm just. How is that number calculated?
It's not shown.
Okay, so how?
That's a projected undesignated fund balance, or that is a projected fund balance, but then we're designating it for the 7.8 and the 22 million. And so for the capital.
Right, yeah.
So no, this is just a
We're plugging
projection.
those
You're not
holes.
seeing
Yeah.
that in the budget presentation. That's just a projection based on current, you know, revenue and expenditure, prior year fund balance, and all of those moving pieces.
Okay. So back to the 50 million on page 8 of the packet. So where it says restricted reserves and or fund balances. We've got the 27 million in there, which is on this page, which is here. All of that adds up to 50 million. That's our reserves. Am I right? Is that correct? That includes our mandatory amount that is required by the state. That includes the requested amount to remain in the fund balance. I assume for like an emergency situation, we want to have that 27 million. And then, of course, the 7 million is on here. It says it's projected unbudgeted fund balance for fiscal stability. So where, how do we know that we have 37 million? You're projecting it based on, I'm hearing revenues, I mean, is there not a
Until I close the year, we'll never have I cannot predict a $400 million budget to the penny, revenue or expenditures. No one can.
Okay.
And so we will never have a completed fund balance until we close our books. Okay. Same thing with the estimated reserves. I am estimating based off of prior year and where we've collected for what grants I know out there, what daycare fund balances are. I'm projecting that will That will not be the
Change.
number. That will change.
Right.
That's why I tried to put estimated there. That's an estimate.
Yeah.
It will change. If we have somebody spend a big amount of money next month, it's going to change even more. And so, you're looking at we have almost 5,000 employees. You're looking at 5,000 employees' salaries, their benefits, their taxes, utilities, diesel fuel. I mean, if I could predict diesel fuel, I would be rich. And so, so that it is projections. And every budget, if anybody tells you it's not, that's not true. If you're ever here, you're always projecting forward. Now, if you're doing a budget after you close your books, that's a different scenario. But the budget will always be the next year budget will always be a projection.
All right, so we've got that. We've got the appropriated required amount by the state that's required by the state, the 16.6 million. We've got the 27 million. That 37 million. So all of that comes out to 80 million that we're going to have, that we're projecting to have in our undesignated. Well, that 37 million is going to be budgeted. That's okay. I'm sorry. That's going in to plug the hole of the. We've got a shortfall of 7 million and the capital. Is that
a portion of it, and then that
right.
7 million will be
7 million will be left over.
7 million will be left out. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. My thought on this. I mean, I hope you understand that this is very confusing. I mean, this is confusing. So please, thank you for bearing with me.
Sure.
It just seems that we're ending each year with an excessive amount of reserves. I mean, I'm looking here. We got 16 million, we got 27 million, and then 37 million. That's $80 million going into this next fiscal year. I'm just questioning whether our lines are bloated or our lines are inflated to end up with so much money not being spent.
Well,
Right?
I think there's two ways to look at that, and you kind of have to pick a horse.
Mhm.
So you either are fiscally conservative throughout the year and you watch your budget lines, and you don't your employees, the people that are in charge of those budget lines, are conservative as well, and so they don't spend every dollar that's in their budget line. Or you do kind of like what I think maybe some of the federal government agencies did years ago, and everybody bought stuff in June, right? And you didn't have any fund balance because it said you either spend it or you don't have any. So you got to kind of decide whether you feel like having a healthy fund balance is going to give the board an opportunity to make financial decisions into the future that are good and that can be systematic, or you're always going to be at the mercy of just this year with hardly any opportunity for future planning. And we talked about that.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's a matter of opinion about whether you think that's too much or not enough or that kind of thing. I think when you have, like when the state talks about their rainy day fund, they're lauded for doing that. I think when the county does it, their fund balance is larger than ours. The last time I checked on the cash balance sheet, it's larger than ours, and their budget's about half. So I think that's probably a good thing to discuss. I am proud of our team, and let me tell you why. Because we've been able to do all the things that we've accomplished, pay, benefits, other things, and there's more work to be done. But we've done all of those things, and we've still been able to put the school district in a really strong financial position.
Sure.
I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
But as the board moves forward, you're going to be faced with some challenges because you're going to want to make decisions that will require you to have dollars, whether that's employee pay or other things, that you will probably be proud that you have the opportunity to possibly strategically make decisions to spend some of those reserves and not have to say no every time.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a matter of opinion. I got you. How much do we keep? How much do we?
Sure, yeah.
Do we spend?
And you're going to make that decision every year when you
Sure.
when you budget.
And every year, so it's me. I'm the one that creates the budget. I don't have a team of 20 like most organizations of our size would. It's me. And so I strategically go through every line. I look at trends, I look at forecasts. Now, do I get every single thing right? Absolutely not. But I look at every line, I look at trends. If I think something's trending high, low, I'm adjusting the next year's budget for that. I'm looking at that. But I can't predict who's retiring because that affects the salaries I project. I can't predict who's going to take what medical insurance. I can look at a trend, but trends don't always hold. So there is a lot to it. And it's me. And so,
Right.
there is a lot that goes in it, but I do look at, hey, where did I hit every year? I look at what percentage of the budget, okay, this particular line, we came in within 97% of that. Okay, is that reasonable? I'm looking at that analytically. And then I also report that to the state. And if there are any expenditures that they think are proportionately out of, I explain those. And so we're constantly looking at that.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. We strategically deficit spent this previous year.
Wait, say that one more time. I'm sorry.
We strategically deficit spent this previous year, which used some fund balance. I'm going to tell you why. We had confirmation last year after TISA passed the legislature. We received our first initial estimate. We knew that we were going to see a substantial revenue increase in TISA, right? So last year, we made a conscious decision to go ahead and give a larger pay increase. Does that make sense? We did that a year early for our employees, knowing that we were going to deficit spend, and guess where that came from? It came from reserve fund balance as we balanced our budget for this year. And then, of course, that revenue did come in.
Right.
So we just paid it a year in advance, but we had to do that. And we had the opportunity to do that because we had healthy fund balance. If we wouldn't have, we would have been like a lot of other school districts and not been able to pass that along to our employees until that revenue hit for this upcoming fiscal year. So,
Yeah, and I know our MOE went up. We got an additional 14 million last year from the county, and so there is this lingering question: is if we have so much in our fund balance, was that 14 million necessary? And I don't want to get into all that because we did raise that. So just to summarize, help me get this in my mind. 16 million. I'm looking on this page now. So our undesignated fund balance, just to summarize, we have 16.6 million, which is the mandatory amount for the state. No, I know that's in that's on page 8, right? Okay. And then 27 million, which I know, and that's on page 8 as well. Okay, so that is money we're keeping aside for a rainy day fund. And then on top of that, we are projecting an additional 37 million of unspent money from previous years, right? And so that brings,
It may not necessarily come from.
it's an estimate.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's previous fund balances plus revenues plus minus expenditures, so it's not just this year per se, it's
Sure.
an accumulation.
So that 37 million is an accumulation. So estimated our undesignated fund balance, we add all three of those, that comes out to 80,632,000. Is that correct? That I added all three of those together, so.
I'll trust your math.
Okay. We're using that 37 million for budgeting purposes. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
You did great.
I'm just trying to get it all figured
Yeah.
out.
Mr. Lancaster.
Oh, so, last week, the governor did his teacher pay bill. I can't remember the exact name. I think Teacher Paycheck Protection Act, right? So we now know what the minimums are. That's kind of, I guess, I mean, we had a proposal, but we now know that the minimums for the next 4 years or 3 years. I guess that's one of my biggest concerns is how we get there, because I mean, I asked Ms. Brown and I asked Dr. Phillips kind of to give me a projection of what $1,000 would be, and it was, I think, $3.2 million, I think, is where we came out, somewhere around there. So every $1,000 jump that we have to make will cost us $3.2 million, and you know, plus yeah, that's just exactly. So I guess my concern, you know, of course, is that plus our, you know, we've also got to start thinking as soon as we approve our iPad purchase, you know, replacing those. And one question, you know, that I kind of had in my mind is, I understand the high school devices are basically have enough in the ESSER grant to cover the high school devices, and also understand the middle school devices would be the part that we're budgeting $3.5 million in capital in this budget for, and that those devices would not arrive until around fall break. Is that what we're thinking?
I guess it'll depend on when our budget is approved. Like if the county commission approves our budget in June, then we could place an order for those on July 1st, and we're probably looking somewhere like mid-September. If our budget does not pass in, you know, prior to July 1st, then obviously it would be delayed. You know, the comptroller becomes involved on September 1st, right. So
we're expecting the high school to be there basically day one.
I think we'll probably let the dust settle a little bit and pass them out about week 2 or week 3.
Right, but I mean,
yeah, we should be close.
So I guess my concern or my thought process is, okay, we're not going to get middle school at least until maybe the end of the first 9 weeks of the first semester. But yet, as soon as you hand those things out, that's a year of usage. So even though you're basically only going to get 3/4 of a year for a full year's worth of use. You know what I'm saying? You got a 3-year life or a 4-year life, whatever it is going to be. You're I don't want to use the term wasting a quarter of a year, but you're kind of wasting a quarter of a year with that. So have we thought about going ahead and using the ESSER grant on the high school devices and looking at next year to purchase the middle school, and what would be the detriment to us to do that?
I think, you know, the biggest detriment is that, as we mentioned 2 weeks ago when we presented and shared, we're about to drive off the Chromebook cliff. Those devices are becoming more risky to use for testing. So on one hand, it's a testing concern, but I think the bigger thing is, as you talk to middle school principals, is they're not able to, you know, instructionally do the things that they would like to do, that their teachers would like to do, because they have some Chromebook carts, but not enough. You know, like I just anecdotally, my daughter teaches 7th grade at Knox Doss. She can get the Chromebook carts maybe once every 2 weeks because there just aren't enough. So we're talking about, you know, I agree, in an ideal world, we would have the iPads at the start of school and be able to roll 6/12. But I think, you know, if you're talking 6 to 8 weeks, 9 weeks, versus not having them for another year, schools having to try to, you know, it also gets you behind on replacing, you know, like most of our schools now are going to a monitor setup with an Apple TV or Chrome type device, and those LED panels will last, you know, 10, 12 years. You'll never burn out the device. We'll replace them before they burn out. So I think, you know, you're slowing down schools we would be slowing down schools being able to make those kind of replacements on an ongoing basis, because the way we've constructed the district device fund, it was great until, you know, we realized the need for mobility during COVID, and the money that we put in the district device fund is not sustainable for schools. So I think what you're looking at, if we delay much, is schools are going to have to commit to going back to fundraise to buy devices, you know, for 1 year, and then you're going to be on the flip side looking that we bought devices that we didn't really need when we were coming back the next year with iPads.
Okay. like I said, that's my only,
Yeah.
you know, from a, if
Right.
all things being equal, it kind of makes a little bit of sense to hold off. But
Yeah.
if you're saying, basically you're saying that we do not have enough devices that will last this next school year in middle school to do what
I mean,
we need to do.
We can limp through, but there's a question of like, if we have the money, do we want to limp through? I mean, if you ask me how I look at it and looking at it in the future, not to jump ahead too much, because I'm very happy to let Dr. Phillips sit over there now, and I'll sit out here as offensive coordinator, but for a little bit longer. But if you ask me, we have to look at device purchases the same way we look at school buses, things like that. You know, if you look at the capital money that we have allocated, we've done a great job. You know, I can say, like, when I became a principal in 2014, we immediately received an $8.4 million renovation at White House High School. That was long overdue, because when I came back to teach, the classroom that I taught in looked identical to the classroom I sat in as a student, down to the Channel 1 television up on the wall. That was the technology. So we've come a long, long way, but when I look at the capital purchases that we needed to make, scoreboards, band equipment, different things like that, we've invested heavily over the last few years in pushing money out to school campuses to cover those type of things. I think a question we have to ask moving forward is, do we push so much of that capital out, or do we reserve some because we're able to make technology purchases at the district level much cheaper than individual schools can, and then we're able to push out those devices? So I think, like, you know, to me, Mr. Lancaster, I agree with you. I mean, in an ideal world, we'd have them on day one, but I think the way I would think about it moving forward is that we explore all avenues, and we think about what our priorities are, just as Dr. Phillips has done the last 12 years, and Amanda, is to look and prioritize and then work that plan. And I think devices are going to be essential, because I think you're going to start to see paper textbooks and things like that go the way of the past.
Okay. And like I say, I'm not against the overall idea about it. It's just once you give somebody something, it's you almost can't take it away. I mean, it's very hard. Now, the good thing I guess I could see is, or the only saving grace that's kind of giving me a little less heartburn on this line item is the fact that we are establishing a $3.5 million budget for it this year, which, as long as we carry that forward, we should, that kind of will be our, 3-year. Yeah. Well, that's obvious, but.
It goes to what Mr. King's talked about. We set that money aside every year, and you're going to see that money roll forward as non-expended dollars in future years, because you're waiting 3 years to expend it all.
Yeah, that's what I don't want to. I mean, that's what I want to make sure we have, going forward in the future is, if we do this, I don't want to have a $9 million hit 3 years from now that's like all of a sudden just, that we're not prepared for. And, the other thing is the fact that we have a known of the teacher salary that we also have to get up to.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right, that's all I got. I do have one other question, and that is with it's in capital. It's the other construction cost online. It's $76,100,791. It's basically paving. I noticed we increased our paving budget for $500K, and I would be derelict in my duty if I did not ask, is Merrill Hyde on the list to be paved?
Yeah, we actually, I've talked with Toby a couple times about that, and we have a great partnership. We started this years ago with the Highway Department, and they help us, which saves us funds, and it also helps them some too. But they've been gracious partners over time, Miss Judy, and then Toby as well. And I think Toby's been out and looked at Merrill Hyde. I think it's a site for us this summer in June, so we're really looking at July.
So before school starts back, they should have a revamped
Yeah, and I'll call
Parking
tomorrow
lot.
and check on that with Toby, but.
Yeah, I don't want to make any promises, but I mean,
Yeah.
we've, you know, I've been told that kids have been lost in
Yeah,
some
yeah.
potholes in that
Yeah,
parking lot.
it needs it. I think Mr. King maybe asked me about that.
I've emailed you a couple times.
Yeah, so we.
We get a lot of
Yeah, we're
complaints about
we're
Merrill Heights.
hopeful that happens, and you're gonna have that every year, somewhere. We have a lot of parking lots and a lot of asphalt to cover, so. But hopefully, he will continue to work with the school district and do that.
And my third question or about it is the resource assistance. Did we ever make a decision?
It's about $250,000 if you move them two ranges.
Well, I would,
So-
if I can, I would like to make a, you know, amendment to include that in here.
Okay.
So, I don't know how that, I would like to propose a budget amendment to increase it by $250,000 for the resource assistance.
To be included on the list.
To be two-step, yeah.
Two range.
Sorry.
Two range increase.
Right, we don't have to do an increase in the budget. It would just come out from,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Whatever it has to do to.
It's special ed assistance. is
Yes,
what we're
yes,
So
talking
our
sir.
resource assistants
Resource
are the ones that are basically going in and helping with our inclusion kids.
That was mentioned earlier at the previous meeting. Ms. Andrews mentioned it, and we did that research. And so in your packet where we show those ranges and the changes, you would just add that to it.
And I knew I calculated it in my head, which is not very good, but it was about 200,000. So when you say 250, I'm like, oh, that sounds good.
250, yeah.
I'll second that.
All right.
Motion been made and second, I need some lights.
And we did this, we did this last year. And there is some discussion on, and I don't know the answer. So last year we did this, and what we did is we did an amendment in July to take that out of reserve balance and budget that instead of amending this particular budget because it's not presented that way. And so I just don't want us to get in a weird spot where you've not voted on the actual budget.
So what you're saying is it's a lot easier, if that's the will of the board, for us to approve the budget as it is, understanding in the minutes that we're gonna add those resource assistants on the range change, and then you will see that 200 exact amendment, whatever that is, $250,640 or whatever, you'll see that in July as an amendment into the budget.
We'll see it in June or July? June.
I don't think it'd be approved by the commission, would it, in that particular situation? Yeah.
It would have to be approved by the commission because it is an allocation of our reserve balance, yes. So, but that is how we handled it last year. I will check, Sarah. We might have done that in June to be effective July. But we didn't change this. We just.
Whatever, yeah, what we would need to do.
Because that's what
My
would
only
essentially
concern
happen.
with
The reserve
that-
balance would go down.
Yeah.
But there's 8 or 9 different lines that you're gonna in different major categories even, that some of those, and we've got federal affected. So it's not just it's not one line you'd see, it's like taxes and all of those.
Right, but for us to approve it so that when what is currently presented within the budget, when they receive that this group would also receive that phrase at the same time.
Yes, so if everything was approved as presented, and I think you're probably right about the June, and so that would go to the commission in July. And so if they passed that would take effect in August, just like everyone else's pay would. So I think that is how we did it last year.
I think that is how we did it last year.
So if you would like to withdraw your motion and the second, then we can do it that way.
Fine with doing that.
Yeah, we didn't vote on it, we just collectively agreed that they would be included within that, and then we brought it forward.
You don't have an objection to that? I didn't think anybody would, but if it's okay with Mr. Lancaster.
We'll just do it the same way we did last year when we added one group in.
So will we have to come back and vote in July for this, and then it goes to the commission, or in June, or are we basically saying now that we want this to happen,
Yeah, so I would present an amendment next month, and I say to be effective July, and just like with our regular budget amendment, and then we would put our budget in, and then we would have that amendment to it. My concern is that you would have to, I'm concerned you would legally have to vote on, I'd have to go and make all those changes, I'd have to come back and present it to you,
Understand.
you'd have to vote on it, the legality.
It's spread in so many lines.
It's not just their hourly, it's also their.
That expenditure line can't be changed legally unless you make an amendment. So when you approve the budget, then you're gonna have to come back and make an amendment that, once she says, hey, this is all the lines that will be impacted.
That's what you're trying to do.
Okay, the amendment has been withdrawn.
To clarify, just real fast. The amendment is not going to be asking the commission for an extra $250,000. It's, if they approve this budget as is or whatever we approve, all we're saying is we're going to take that 250 from already approved budgeted dollars, which in this case is the fund balance or reserve fund, and use that 250. So it's not, hey, we need more money to pay these positions we've already budgeted.
The amendment that you see will show you exactly what it is. We're telling you 250, it might be 253, 648, 247.
It'll basically be in a June meeting as a budget amendment, like any other budget.
That's right.
amendment is-
Exactly.
is-
You'll see it come through.
Okay.
The 7 million here will be like, essentially, if I had it all here
6
today,
million.
it would come down, yes.
It'll be deducted out.
The amendment has been withdrawn. We're back to the main motion, and Ms. Hawkins has waited so patiently. Ms. Hawkins.
I can remember what I was going to say. I noticed that another huge development has been approved and is going to be on the horizon in the city of Gallatin. Gallatin is growing so rapidly with condominiums and apartments and multi-family developments. Is our budget taking into account that we are going to be facing some greater influx of students, and how are we doing as far as so far the amount of students that are coming in from the already completed construction?
Yeah, so
It's a good question. I think if you look historically, we do fine budgeting and we get it really close to what we think the anticipated enrollment will be year over year over year. Now, obviously moving forward, in the city of Gallatin and Gallatin proper, you need to be mindful of capacities, and you need to be mindful of when you ask the commission for the next round of funding for schools that may be in Gallatin or in close proximity to Gallatin, as those things develop. When you hear about a subdivision, of course, some have built at a more rapid pace than others, but sometimes you may have an 8 to 10 year window. They give you a site development plan, and that's approved all through the city or county. And then, there's 500 homes, but they're not all 500 built and occupied the first day, right? They're built out over the course of sometimes 6, 8, 10 years. So it's a little bit of lead time. The multifamily that are built faster and have more density, those are the ones that I always watch a lot closer.
And that's what we're getting.
Right. And so those are the ones that you really need to be paying closer attention to, as far as how are those going to impact your schools that are zoned in those particular locations, of course.
And I did want to ask, currently, how is our attendance level? Are there any schools that are over 100%?
Yeah, Gallatin High School probably is still over 100. I think we've reduced
Even
the
after
majority.
Liberty Creek?
I think we've reduced the majority. The reason is you have classroom capacity with classrooms that have been added to those schools, but you can never change the interior core because of the way the buildings are built. You can't really expand cafeterias and those kind of things. So you have two different utilization factors there. You may have enough classrooms, but you run out of space, and you have to have 7 lunches, right? So you look at it 2 different ways. Classroom space, we're fine, but we have some other utilization spaces that are tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I anticipate that this is going to be a growing concern in the years to come. especially in the Gallatin city limits, or the Gallatin city schools, that there is going to be a large influx of students, and we're going to have to figure out how to get them in the school.
Yeah, I certainly think that that'll be something that as you look into the future, the next 5 years or so, certainly going to need to have some planning around that and look at what's thoughtful and, where to place the next school, and whether that's a middle school or, there's a lot of options to that. Whether you want to have a freshman building only that's new, so you download Gallatin High School, whether you build a new standalone middle school, elementary school, where that's located inside, outside the city limits. Lots of discussion and decisions to be made that will impact a lot of people, and so you just probably want to start that process early.
Ms. Andrews.
Yep. First, we're getting awfully close to the 9 o'clock mark, so I would like to move for us to extend our meeting to 10.
Motion been made and seconded.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the meeting going to 10 o'clock, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
No.
Mr. Graham, I think he had
So
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to hit a little bit on the iPads. I too processing through and thought, that, do we do, high school this year, middle school maybe next year, just split it up and so forth. However, spoke with the middle school principal just because I think, it's always good to touch base with them because that's who's going to be impacted. And I also didn't want to be like, well, yeah, this is going to be great. And then a principal say, yeah, this isn't, we do, that's great that y'all did it, but that's not what we wanted. However, the feedback that I received made me realize just how important it is for us to do middle school this year. One of the things that happens in middle school is, middle school is a unique, we all know this, it's a unique time in our students' lives. And it all happens really fast. It really dawned on me today. I'm like, so we have 6th graders that are coming in. They're trying to transition out of middle school or out of elementary school. So they have that year. 7th grade, hands down, I will tell you, I feel like it's the hardest year ever for any student. And then 8th grade, they're finishing up, but then they're transitioning to high school. There's a lot of life, a lot of growth that happens within the students. They're trying to do lots of different things. Also, because of the nature of that and the way that our schedules are structured in middle school, our middle school teachers are struggling. Just who I've talked to, they are struggling. They have a lot on them as far as students having to be pulled out for different services and so forth. So then how they structure which kids are in classes. And one of the things I was told with the iPads is those kids who the only reason that they're currently being pulled out is because they have read alouds. They're not going to have to be pulled out. Like they can stay in that class with their peers and have their iPad with their earbuds. And so that's an advantage for them. It breaks down walls and barriers and quite frankly stigmas that are attached sometimes with kids being pulled out. So they can stay in those classrooms. It helps our principals with scheduling and being able to balance out those classrooms. We have a growing EL population, a massive growing population in our county, and iPads will help because the ratios with EL students to teachers, it's difficult. Our teacher shortage is real and it's hard, and so where I thought, hey, I really think that they are instrumental in us having them for next year and just what that will mean for middle school to, quite frankly, I feel like it will give those teachers a chance to maybe breathe a little.
Mr. Graham.
I'm from Middle Tennessee, and so back when we were having the big debate about sales tax versus income tax, I was glued to the TV. I think I was in college. And there was a state legislator who said, the roof is blown off our house and we're worried about how to pave the driveway. And the sentiment was that the state was spending money on the wrong things. I appreciate all the work that has gone into this budget, but I think even more so there needs to be an emphasis on the wages for our hourly employees. And I appreciate moving up the resource assistance up 2 levels. I don't think that's enough. I don't think we're doing enough. And also, I think, this is just my opinion, and as I understand it, we can manipulate this after we pass the budget, but I think it would be better for our licensed teachers to get them to the 50,000. That's in 3 years we have to be at 50,000, correct? So that would be $1967 a year. And so I think it would be better to break that into thirds for that minimum salary and step up from there. For the hourly employees, I know, Dr. Phillips, you said that we look at other school districts and we kind of compare what our hourly employees are to other school districts in the area. I don't think that's who we're competing with hourly employees. I think we're competing with businesses in our area. I think our hourly employees can very quickly leave us and go work for Chick-fil-A or Target or, the Gap factory or whatever. And so, out there in the world, all these businesses that we're competing against, their minimum starting hourly rate is $15 an hour. But, I mean, what I would hope is maybe we could, instead of looking at hourly rates versus other school systems, we look at hourly rates for the same position or a similar position with businesses in the area.
Yeah, sure. And so I think you always have to be mindful that we have a really strong benefits program. And so when you look at our system, there are a lot of things that go into, well, they're paying $15 at Target, but they're not guaranteed 40 hours and they don't have any benefits. And so when you look at the raw cost of our benefits, we're paying 80% of anything that an employee chooses. And the national average is around 45, 46, 47%, where they're able to choose family coverage at the employer. Ours north of 75. So we have a lot of employees that do come to us and stay with us because we have a really good, strong benefit program, especially medical insurance. So you have to factor that into your total cost, because as a board, you're paying 80% of that cost, whether it's not. I had this conversation today with another board member and mentioned that, Wilson County, where we're about to go to $12 an hour for the lowest wage, and that's not enough, I agree with you, but it's certainly much better than where we were 6 years ago. We had 6 years ago, we had more than 50% of our classified employees that made minimum wage. At that time, it was $7.25, I think. So we've come a long way, but we've got a lot of work to do. And so I would challenge you to continue to march forward and do that. My point was, they have $13.50 as their lowest wage, where we're about to be $12, but they only cover the cost of employee insurance. They don't cover family or employee plus spouse or employee plus spouse and children or anything else. So, when you look at that, certainly that's important to employees that are choosing or needing that insurance as part of their work environment. And so, you may want to keep that in mind too, because that is a total portion of the cost of that. As you move pay up, you want to try to manage the other side of that.
I understand that. I respectfully disagree. I think benefits matter, but benefits don't pay for a tank of gas.
Right.
Benefits don't buy groceries.
Yeah.
Right. And lower income individuals, when you and I go fill up our tank of gas, we just put our debit card in, and whatever number it spits out, that's what we pay. Lower income individuals go with a $20 bill, and whatever amount of fuel that gets, and they deal with that.
I agree with you.
I don't want to burden our employees that way.
I agree with you 100%, and I look forward to how you continue to move employee pay up. We've made it a priority, and we've been able to do that and pay for it, and certainly hope as you move forward in the future you continue to do that.
Mr. Gregory. We have gotten several classified employees from other counties just because of the benefit situation. And it's been very helpful to our county. And I'm like, Miss Brown down there, I've got allergies. But we have, in fact, I know several from other counties that come into Portland or Gallatin. I wish we'd get more bus drivers. Thank you.
Yeah, so thinking on these iPads, it's the one-to-one that is really making this expensive, and so my thinking is like what Ms. Andrews was saying with that scenario. Students would not need to be one-to-one. You could, if a student needs to be pulled out, there's an iPad over there. I've got concerns about that, but I just thinking on shifting gears here, teacher pay, and I really appreciate you guys sending me what you sent today, and so a $1,000 pay raise for teachers, plus the I guess the step pay, and total it would be about $6.6 million for a district-wide $1,000 teacher certified raise. That's based on the estimated numbers, you guys.
I sent that to you, but I don't have it in front of me. Will you read it off for the board?
Yeah, it just says certified $1,000 pay raise on the teacher scale increases recurring costs by approximately $3.2 million. This does not include the annual step that's guaranteed by law for experienced years of 0 to 25. That cost on our current staffing is an additional recurring increase of $2.4 million.
Gotcha.
So I add those together, that's $6.6 million.
Perfect. I just wanted to hear the number again.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
knew you were right. Yeah, and I knew the other board members want to hear that too.
Yeah. And so when I'm thinking about these iPads, and I'm thinking about teacher pay, we've got to get to 50,000 in 3 years. So we're gonna have to, where are we at? 45,000 starting pay.
If this budget's approved,
Right.
We're about 6.
So that's another 5,000 in 3 years. I mean and if these numbers are right, each $1,000 is going to be an additional recurring $6.6 million to get us to the 50,000 starting pay. iPads are cool. One-to-one is cool. I know they're a supplemental tool, and the other thing is I noticed in bids and purchases today we bought some iPads, right? We just bought 184 iPads. Let's see, that is on bids and purchases that, let's see. Well, I just saw it. It's in there. My point is we're buying technology. We're buying iPads. Oh, that's item number 19 on there. And I'm just having a hard time. I'm thinking, okay, do I want to give teachers an additional $1,000 or buy these iPads? And Dr. Langford, you were saying that, some school, is it every school with the Chromebooks and the technology is just starting to kind of go by the wayside? Is it every school in that situation?
Most of our...
You're saying we're going to limp along. Is that district-wide, or what's...
Yeah, I think most of our mobility devices were purchased, since COVID hit. We have some, but what we're finding, and Mr. Brown, I guess he's gone, but Chris could tell us more, but the thing is that we're finding is that security features in Chromebook, once Google stops supporting them, you can't use them for testing. They become more problematic for use. So we may have Chromebooks. The question is their usability. And also the fact that even with those, as schools are going to catch more pressure to maintain the same level of devices that they have currently, we should be looking to say we're going to have more devices available to our students. I think the question you have to ask is not can we limp through a year, is are we doing what's best for kids? Because if we're doing what's best for kids, then I think it's pretty clear. But if we're gonna, we could possibly limp through a year, and it would hit different schools differently. You have some schools that have a lot more technology because they have, you know, for instance, some schools do a lot more fundraising to provide more technology to their schools. Other schools don't have that, so they're limited to the district device fund, and they're more limited in what they have. Now, we've tried to get to a baseline level through the use of ESSER funds and the purchase of Chromebooks over the last couple of years, but you know, with ESSER going away, those devices are going to start over the next, 12 to 24 months to start, just the wear and tear on the devices and the age are going to be gone. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it's a question of what's best for kids.
That is the question. And I've looked at research. Some say it's not. Some say it is. And it's hard to know. I think when I saw, with the iPad presentation, it was, and like the scenario that Ms. Andrews was saying, it's a go-to, like we can, there are benefits to it. Engagement and behavior. So that was the function that I heard. Not so much learning, but more, learning is engagement. Learning happens when students are engaged, but the reasoning for the iPads, to me, largely was for engagement reasons. That's what I got from the presentation. And
I would say engagement, accessibility, equity across the district for all kids, regardless of their socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
The ability to be able to create, to produce, whether that's in fine arts or whether that's in math. I think, looking at, going into a geometry classroom and seeing most of our textbooks come equipped with videos to support learning, but also ways to manipulate shapes, different things like that. Real world application. I could list 10 or 15 more, but I think that I think student engagement is the biggest part of student learning. I think research shows that, quite conclusively, but I think that, beyond just student engagement, there's a number of other avenues where they help students and teachers in the classroom.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, I think engagement needs human interaction, human contact. How do you engage students? You got a great teacher with, really interesting lessons. And I understand the iPad can help facilitate the interest level of those lessons, obviously.
I think student engagement is bigger than just interest. I think student engagement is being able to, to take what they're learning in the classroom and to produce something with it.
Right.
And I think that's what we're aimed at, not just, wow, these are cool, because kids are not wowed by technology just like, a decade, 15 years ago when PowerPoint became a thing and everybody was putting things on PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. PowerPoint ceased to be really interesting to kids very quickly. I don't think that that's the type of interest and engagement that we're talking about. We're talking about the fundamental ability to be able to create, whether that's video, whether that's writing, whether that's drawing, whether that's capturing in different ways, whether that's being able to hear a text being read aloud instead of having to go down the hallway. I think there are about 1,000 different ways that it boosts student engagement, but not. I think I would push back on student interest and engagement being the same thing.
Well, I'm just saying, just teaching in general. You're teaching. You want students engaged in the lesson, and I guess, does one-to-one, having these devices at a one-to-one ratio, is that a necessity for what you're describing?
I don't know if it's a necessity. We'd still have school. We'd still do great things. We have great teachers. Yeah. But I think if you're looking at you're always limited in what you can use technology for in a classroom because you're tied to a cart that moves around the building, and you might get it, some teachers may have it more frequently. Some classrooms do have, one-to-one devices currently. But to be able, if I'm a teacher, I'm going to prepare my lessons very differently if I know that my kids come in every day with the devices versus I've got a device once every 2 or 3 weeks, or I've got to schedule it and something happens and it gets moved around. Once that happens a couple times, teachers stop embedding technology into their lessons in the same way. Whereas, with the tools that you saw, that was just a brief snapshot of what Apple can do, what Apple Classroom can do, and things like that. In addition to being able to, it will be a mindset shift for our school, for our classrooms, teachers, because we're so accustomed to. I would liken it to when I started teaching. We didn't get one textbook for every student. We got classroom sets. So I had to use my English textbooks with 3 different classes, so you couldn't send them home. If I wanted for kids to read something at home, I had to make copies of it. What we're looking at now is a kid being able to take that device home to use it as an extension of the classroom, but also to carry on what they're doing. So, I would say that I do think it's essential for us moving forward if we have the opportunity to do it. I don't think it's something that we'll regret. I think it's something that will become something that we don't realize the many benefits of it until we jump in, because I think our teachers will find, what we have found every step of the way is when we provide teachers new tools, they wow us and amaze us with what they're able to do with those tools with our kids. And I think we risk increasingly a scenario where, like, my daughters had 8 devices at the house. Other kids don't have access to that.
Right.
And I think we can level that playing field.
Okay. It's $10 million we're talking. And we're going to have to pay that again in 3 years. We're going to use ESSER funds this time around. My concern there is obviously the state comptroller advises against using ESSER funds for any kind of recurring cost. And you can say, well, this is a one-time purchase, but we're talking about it knowing it's not. We're going to have to pay. We're going to have to if we're going to one-to-one, we're never going to go back, and that's something we've got to facilitate from this point going forward. Staggering the cost, maybe. It's just a very difficult thing. $10 million versus for iPads. What's best for the kids? Is it better to give them that, or is it better to give raises to our teachers who, I don't know how.
I think long term you're not looking at the revenue streams in the same way, because I think what we're talking about is that $9 million long term we've got to prioritize when we look at our capital expenditures. Technology is a capital type purchase.
Yeah.
So we've got to make the tough decision to say we're going to do less of this in capital so that we're prepared to incorporate some of the, most of the cost of the technology. Plus, we will have the option in 3 years to sell those iPads back. Right now, the going rate is around $100, $105 per iPad. So you're looking at recouping, 1.2, 1.3 million, somewhere in there, to go with whatever capital we put in. But I think it's a prioritization that we, as the school system, school board, have to do if we say this is essential and vital for our kids. I think that I think looking at I don't know that it's a recurring expense as it is a capital priority, I guess is the way I would say it.
If we didn't pay for the iPads for middle school, we could increase teacher pay a little more. All right, well, it's just, there's a lot to think about. I mean, there is. So, thank you.
Mr. Lacy.
I remember Dr. Phillips, I remember Dr. Phillips said if you create a reoccurring expense, you're not going to pull it out of your fund balance, correct?
Not for long.
Not for long. So, say in 3 years we're going to have to replace about $9 million worth of iPads, and that may be $10 million in 3 years. I guess we would have to ask the county commission for more money, correct?
No, you're going to you're going to restrict capital. We've talked about this 3 times. You're going to restrict capital each year. So you already have a revolving amount of money in your capital account each year. It's part of GP. All you're going to do is just set aside $3 million of that each year.
But that would only be around, what, 7 million?
9 million. You got 3 years. 3 million times 3 is 9.
Okay.
So it's a process there to do it. You just have to prioritize to do that every year moving forward in the budget.
Gotcha. So
You see what I'm saying?
we wouldn't need a tax increase in 9 years. We would set aside that 3.5 million 3 years in a row and pay for new iPads.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it out of your budget.
If they
now.
still cost 9 million.
Right. Yeah, there's a way to do it.
And then one question I had, how will kids log into these iPads? Will that be with a code, password, facial recognition?
They've got, they would use their school login, just like we log into Chromebooks. Each student has a login that's unique to them currently that we use. So Ms. Essen and her team have put together a flip chart with a lot of that answers a lot of those questions. But in terms of logging in, they already have a login that they use. It's like their student ID.
So basically, if their parents just say want to look at, see what they're learning, they could get their password and get on the iPad to see what they're learning. Is that okay?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the idea is to make that as transparent and accessible for parents. The child will probably be able to do more with it than
right.
But,
and then another thing this sounds a whole lot like virtual learning. I had somebody mention that to me tonight, and I'm not real fond of that because I know a lot of parents, they don't want their kids looking at screens and iPads more than what they already are. I know at my house we get on to our kids for staring at screens all the time. So like I said, I'm just not a fan of that. I wouldn't mind approving the ESSER funds, that's what, 5.5 million for the high school, but I'd almost think it would be better to use that 3.5 million in the general purpose budget for something other than iPads. That's just my personal opinion. Dr. Langford sent out some information. I've asked a couple questions. Will it improve test scores? You sent us some stuff from Apple. I really don't buy what Apple said because it said basically one teacher in South Carolina, her students were reading at like 35% standard. And then once she got iPad, she was at 100% reading standard. I mean, the kids jumped up like 65%, 70. So it's not realistic. That's a sales pitch. I'm a salesman. I just don't, and I've talked to some really smart people.
I think the other article I sent you though showed that it had a large effect size. So that's, a large effect size is anywhere from around a year's growth. So I wouldn't disagree. It's hard to make a direct connection between any tool and test growth, but the Apple thing was just a collection of anecdotal evidence from school districts. Some of the other articles that I shared with y'all did have some evidence that showed that there is a connection between that and growth.
And like I said, I really don't think putting a screen in front of a kid, it may be cool, but I don't think it's going to improve test scores. Wilson County, I think their third grade, they have iPads, one-to-one iPads. They don't get to take them home. And they did just a smidgen better than we did. I think one of their school board reps told me they had, I think 50% was kind of in that retention area. We were at 51. Is $9 million, $3.5 million worth investing in iPads, which I know our third graders aren't going to get iPads. I just don't think it's going to improve test scores, and that's what we're here to do, make kids smarter, have them learn more. Just don't think iPads, we can use that as an excuse. It's going to help our kids learn better. And that's just I really think it could be used better in paying our teachers. It's going to be a reoccurring expense. We know we've got to get our teachers up to 50,000. I personally feel like it would be better to invest in our teachers. And that's something that we know we have to do. And then if we want to, and I talked to a state legislator today, they gave us $31 million in this budget. And it's not for iPads, it's to get teachers where they need to be. The raises that we're giving our staff, how much is that in this budget? How much money did we spend total on raising everybody's pay?
It's a little over. It's in that budget presentation. Just look at it, Mr. Lacey. It's spelled
we know
out.
a total?
Yeah, it's totaled out there. It says total pay raise increases $11,795,000.
$11 million? Well, they gave us 31 million, and I was told that that was for teacher raises. They're not going to give us any more money for buying iPads. It's for getting teachers where they need to be, and I would say the county commission probably believes the same way. I just think it would be a better scenario to invest in our staff, all of our staff.
Ms. Andrews.
Yeah, well, I just want to clarify that I did not say that with the iPads in middle school that we would be taking kids out and saying there's an iPad over there for them to have read alouds. It's actually the opposite, is that they would not have to leave their classrooms, that they could stay in their seat and they wouldn't be singled out, that because they would all have an iPad, so they could follow along with their peers and not be singled out. So I do want to clarify that. I also want to, the reality is, this is the world our kids are living in. Their peers at Pope and their peers at Davidson Academy, they have iPads. The exact same iPads that we're looking at getting our kids. And so it's hard for me to look at these kids and say, yep, it's good for them over there, but you public school kids, y'all don't need them. That's who they're compared to. That's who they're going to go up against when they have scholarships and they're trying to get into college. We're ACT's going online, our TCAP's online. I'd much rather start them in 6th grade, learning on the iPad, learning and getting familiar, making sure they're comfortable with those types of things so that when they do get to the test, especially the ACT test, that's especially for those going to college, yeah, you can be test optional right now, but not if you want money. If you want money, if you want scholarships, you're going to take the ACT, and you better hope you score well. That's where you're getting money. So in some ways, we're going to do our kids a disservice by not equipping them and letting them be ready for what the world is that they live in. Additionally, when we talk about high school kids, I can tell you right now, I've probably had a minimum of at least 10 requests this year from my kids to add apps to their phone so that they can do something in their classroom. I'd much rather that app get added to an iPad than on the device that I'm paying for, which I'm paying for the iPad too because I'm a taxpayer. But just saying, I don't want them looking at this. I don't want them looking at a screen all the time. They're not doing this all the time. But when they do, it would be great if it was actually a bigger screen. Because this is what they're using. This is what they're using in class now. So let's give them the tools. Then they can take it home. Not every kid has a computer at home. So they're typing their papers on their phones. That's not good either. They can't apply to colleges. They can't type up their research papers. Field trips, not everybody can go on the same field trips. Guess what? They can on an iPad. They can go to different places of the world. We saw it. We saw the Statue of Liberty and them taking the pieces apart. It opens a world up to kids who would never have a chance to go there. So I get, maybe talking about, is this, I support our teachers, but there's a difference between a capital expense and a reoccurring budget expense. These aren't the same. So to substitute one for the other, in my opinion, our teachers, our staff, they deserve the raise. Our students also deserve to learn in the world in which they live with the tools in which they're going to be expected to use. You go to Chick-fil-A, you know what they're using? They're using an iPad. At least with iPads, instead of buying Chromebooks, we at least can recoup some money. You're recouping $0 with a Chromebook. I bought my daughters nice Chromebooks, touchscreen. They act as they're like a 2-in-1 thing. They're a year and a half old. Buttons are falling off because they've used them so much. iPads, they're just more durable. They just are. So.
Mr. Grant.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point of order on the iPad discussion? We're still on the budget, and there's a line item on the agenda specifically for the iPads.
No, that's in both.
It's in the budget. We're discussing the budget.
Well, we're discussing the expenditure, but we're not discussing whether or not Davidson Academy has iPads or not. And if we want to compare apples to apples, Davidson County also doesn't require their teachers to cover other classes during planning periods. And Davidson County also offers better hours.
They can also restrict how many students attend their school.
I still have the floor.
How about that?
I still have the floor, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, Davidson County, the point is that those are private institutions. And those private institutions have resources that we're just not going to have at certain times. That's all.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. We have an
Yeah,
amendment. We have a,
Good point.
we're ready to vote. So.
Any other questions on the budget?
Do what?
Questions on the budget? All right, JJ.
All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I
Go
gave Jeremy one of these things, and I just put in here that I have a personal interest in this budget. My wife is a teacher, and I will benefit from the pay raise for my wife will benefit from the pay raise for certified teachers. But I'll be voting on this budget not to represent myself, but for the 2,300 certified teachers in this county. And I'd like to have that added to the minutes, please.
Yes, sir. We'll be happy to. And on that, so just to remind everybody, you agreed to absorb the amendment into this budget. So what we're actually voting on is passing the budget itself. And with that, Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Lancaster? Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Daniels?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Lacy?
Yes.
Chairman Brewer?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, if the board will allow me here, we're getting really running out of time, and we have two things on unfinished that is very important that we either pass or not tonight, because if I understand, Ms. Brown, that if we don't pass them, we will not get summer school done. Is that correct?
These have to go, to the county.
So if it would be all right with the board, if we don't have any objections, we'll skip down to unfinished business discussion interaction regarding amendments to the general purpose budget. If there's no
Motion to approve.
motion to approve and second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, that one carries. Next item is discussion interaction regarding amendments to the federal budget. Motion to approve by everybody. We'll give that to Mr. Lancaster and second by Ms. Andrews. Discussion, Ms. Andrews?
No.
All in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, we can have summer school now. All right, we're back up to discussion and interaction regarding the federal projects budget for fiscal year 2023 and 2024.
Mr. Chairman, I move to group and approve items 2 through 5.
All right,
Second.
motion been made and second to group items 2 through 5. We got a second already. Discussion? Well, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, seeing none, motion carries. Then we are voting for items 2 through 5. Is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve items 2 through 5. Second? Second by Mr. Lancaster. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion and interaction regarding district iPad purchase.
I move to approve.
Motion approved by Ms. Andrews, second by Ms. Hayes. Discussion, we beat it to death, so. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Show me a hand in the nose, please.
Show my hands and nose so we get it right.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, motion carries. Moving down now to unfinished business item number 3, discussion and interaction regarding a revision to policy 4.403, library materials upon second reading. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Ms. Andrews.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hayes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No. No.
Show the nose, raise your hands on the nose so we get that.
Hands raised.
All right, motion carries. Down to discussion of study session items.
Look, we don't have a study session in June or July, and I do want to make a disclosure about Mr. Lacy had a policy about door locks that he sent us some language. I've given that to Katie. She's going to work with the Sheriff's Department. I mentioned that to Mr. Lacy as well. Without objection, you could have the first draft of that in the June regular meeting, right? And discuss it during the June regular meeting and then do it in July, however y'all want to handle that.
And then if you need to move it to where you want to discuss it more, you can always do it in the August study session, right? But, you know, if that's how you want it done. Otherwise, it'll be the August study session before you could actually hear the first run of the policy. However y'all want to choose to do that, but I did want to mention it, okay?
If we're planning on buying door locks soon, sooner would be better than later.
Sure. Just work with her. We'll run the draft by you before we put it up, okay?
Yeah, just to remind everybody, the
Before June.
June meeting is June 13th, and then we'll approve the calendar for July and the next year at that meeting, and we'll send it out. We'll send it out to you guys in the next week so you can kind of look at, you know, our meetings follow pretty much the same pattern, but we'll send it out so you guys can have plenty of time to consider that.
Mr. Daniels, you got a study session?
Yeah, I've got, I need to request the naming of a school facility or a school property at Gallatin High School after a distinguished alumni.
All right, that's all study session items. Going to board comments. Mr. Lacy, we'll start with you.
I'm good.
Mr. Gregory, board comments. Mr. Graham.
Yeah, I'd like to just read a little something I wrote to the class of 2023, if that's okay. To the class of 2023, congratulations. Your diploma is well earned and well deserved. Please know that you're about to embark on the journey of the rest of your lives. While we celebrate your achievement, I also want you to know this means that once again you're starting at the bottom. That's what life is. You went through elementary school only to start at the bottom of middle school. You overcame the awkwardness of middle school only to start at the bottom of high school, and now you're graduating and will once again be starting over. Whether you're attending college, going to trade school, touch screen, going to trade school, jumping straight into employment, or beginning at any other endeavor, you'll be starting at the bottom. Fortunately, this means there's opportunity ahead of you, an opportunity to forge your own place in this world. While graduating is an accomplishment, it will not be your final accomplishment. My hope is we've given you the tools you need to build a successful life and be a productive member of our community. Please do not enter this world thinking you are owed anything. To those who work harder than others always have the best chance for success. You have the right to pursue happiness, but it's never guaranteed on your self-prescribed timeline. Life will constantly throw hurdles in your path, and your reaction is everything. Remember, resistance builds strength, irritation makes pearls, and pressure creates diamonds. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Graham, Mr. Daniels.
Yeah, I just want to take a second to thank our teachers for all the hard work they put in this year. We've got a couple more days left, and they've had a lot thrown at them, not just this year, in the past couple years. I also want to thank staff. We just had a lot of discussion about our budget, and one of the positive things about the discussion is that we're able to talk about a lot of things we've done because we've been able to use our dollars wisely. During some of the comments, I was just sitting here thinking about, during the COVID years, there were school systems in the state and across the country that couldn't afford to pay teachers or staff, or classified employees, and we were able to do that. We talk about the undesignated fund balance, and we talk about rainy days, and man, that was like a Noah flood event type thing that you can never plan for. And because of the way that we've been able to manage the budget over the past 8 to 10 to 12 years, we were able to survive that and come out better on the other side. And even listening to Mr. Graham just now talk about all of the graduates and the opportunities they have, there's a lot of opportunities that those graduates are having or going to have because of some of the decisions that have been made based on budgetary plans and forward thinking that have taken place over the past 8 to 10 to 12 years. And I know we had the discussion about the iPads and the benefits to that, but I think the opportunities that those will provide will better prepare our students moving forward as well. And that's what I think we need to continue to do as a district, is to look for those opportunities to allow our teachers to excel and our students to excel. And we've done a great job so far, but the world's changing. And I appreciate that we tend to be on the cutting edge of that as a school system. So thank you to our teachers and our staff and everyone involved with the education of our students.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Ms. Hawkins.
I just wanted to say that it was very refreshing to see all the Governor's School students here tonight. They are embarking on a very special journey. Two of my children went to Governor's School, and one of those experiences actually formed her decision on what she wanted to do. It made the difference. She went to the Tennessee Heritage and Historical Preservation at Eastern Tennessee State University, and she's now getting her master's in urban planning, and it was all started with that experience. So, and also they made lifelong friends there. It was a wonderful experience, and other than the transportation to get there and get home, the state pays for everything. I believe the fine arts, you do have to pay a fee for the arts, but for all the others, unless something's changed, you don't have to pay a thing. It's a wonderful program, and I encourage students for next year and years to come to consider that when it's this time of year to apply.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. King?
Well, I just want to say that I appreciate the discussion on the budget this evening. And I think it's good for us to have discussion and talk and work through a lot of this stuff. And I just want to thank Ms. Brown for your work, for putting that, putting that together for me and help me out. And Dr. Phillips, thank you for working with me to as well. I had the privilege of attending 2 graduations last week. I attended Liberty Creeks along with Mr. Graham, Ms. Andrews. We were fortunate to be there for their first ever graduating class, and I was just very honored. It was really cool. I was really honored to be there, and just a really neat thing to see. So just congratulations to the class of Liberty Creek 2023. And I also attended Westmoreland's graduation, and which is about as far away from where I live. I mean, it took about an hour to get. I live in Goodlettsville, not far from you and I, Dr. Langford. We don't live far from each other, and so Westmoreland was quite a drive. But it was a great ceremony. It was moving. It was emotional. I really enjoyed that one as well. And so congratulations to them, and congratulations to all the graduates of class of 2023 in Sumner counties. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Andrews?
Thank you. Yeah, I want to say thank you to Long Hollow Baptist. Well, they go by Long Hollow now, but just for their hospitality and for allowing us to have the graduations there at the church. It was great. Beaches was great. The accommodations are great. It's, you don't have to worry about weather. You don't worry about it being hot. You have clean restrooms. You have good parking. So I just want to say thank you to them and their staff, because they dedicate 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days, with their employees and so forth to allow us to have the graduations there. I also want to give a shout out to Jamie York. I feel like we have a lot of people in our district that work behind the scenes that oftentimes don't get the attention that they deserve. Specifically this time of year and through the summer, she works hard all year long, but right now receiving new math textbooks. She'll be receiving school supplies, and her team will be getting all that together and deploying it out to our buildings. So I just want to say thank you to her and her staff.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Lancaster?
I am glad that graduation's over. If you live right behind Long Hollow, you have to factor in about 15 extra minutes anywhere you want to go for those 3 or 4 days. But other than that, congratulations to all our graduates, of course. A couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all the folks that have worked behind the scenes on 3rd grade retention, and I know it's still ongoing, but just the sheer amount of paperwork that was put together and packets that were sent out, to kids, and from 4:30 on a Friday to where we were, where we were getting packets of information as parents on, I think Tuesday afternoon or Monday afternoon. I don't even know what day. Monday afternoon. I don't remember what day it was today. So I know it was a Herculean effort, and I appreciate all the work done by all those people. outside of that, just wanted to make a quick, another quick thanks and congratulations to Beach Elementary in getting STEAM certified. That's a lot of people did a ton of work for that. I did very little as far as anything other than I was involved on the site visit, so I got to sit through one of those. But the most impressed I was that day was with the actual students that led that entire thing, with the representatives from the TSIN. So that was great. And finally, it is the end of tomorrow's last day of school for the, I guess whoever's left that didn't go, and I think high school's quit going. And my daughter said that she doesn't have to go tomorrow in middle school. And but the end of a school year as a parent is probably more so impactful than even a birthday, because it's like you really feel that your kid is aging when they're like, okay, well, you're done with 7th grade, you're now an 8th grader, or you're done with 3rd grade, you're now a 4th grader. So it's just it's a monumental step in kids' lives. It's a monumental step in teachers' lives. But we also have, I'm sure across the district, 100, a lot of teachers that are retiring, and this will be for a lot of those their last day walking out tomorrow, and just that's teaching is it's got to be a calling, because I talk to them probably every day, at least one, and I still don't understand how they do it. So that just thank you for what you do and what you have done, and for the rest of them that are coming back, have a great summer and get some mental health break. So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Lancaster. Ms. Hayes.
I had the honor of just speaking to the Junior Beta Club inductees at Ellis Middle School. And I say that to say that whatever organization, our honor societies, our beta clubs, those groups in our school, they have sponsors. So Miss Henley and Miss Swinger, they dedicate a lot of time outside of being a classroom teacher. Our sponsors are there for our students, for their outside activities, for their beta club, their honor societies, their organizations. They spend a lot of time supporting these kids and traveling with DECA, with all the different organizations that they make trips. So thank you for the over and above service that our teachers give every day, over and above. Thank you, greatly appreciate it. We have some sharp students in this county. I had the honor of attending 2 high school graduations, Hendersonville High School. We missed you, Chairman Brewer. I can't remember a time that you weren't there. It was a perfect night. It was beautiful, and it's outside of the stadium. So it was great. I'm always amazed that, I think this started with Paul Decker. They get 376, I think that's about what the number was, in 1 hour. 1 hour.
With class.
With class. I mean, they are doing it. Nobody gets left behind or looked over. It is just, it's very impressive. And of course, the Sumner County Middle College High. Brad Schreiner, she's amazing. And so I'm just grateful that we have the different pathways, the different options for students to find a place that they fit. And what I love about this is they get their associate's degree the week before they get their high school diploma. So these students are self-disciplined, motivated on their own to get these college classes, and they're getting their high school diploma as well. And then on to the next step, and they list all the universities that they're going to, college universities. I want to thank Compass, every person who had a hand in putting together the Teacher Appreciation Employee Reception at Liberty Creek. It was phenomenal. It was so joyous, so happy. I mean, it was a celebration. of these, and I love getting to see the employees, the staff people in the schools get the awards. They go unrecognized so many times, but they really invest in our kids as much as a teacher does. They're investing, whether they were school nutrition, they were the custodians at the school, and it was just a wonderful celebration, a wonderful celebration. So thank you for all the effort that went into that and the sponsors that helped put this together. So have a safe and fun summer. Have a safe and fun summer.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. I want to say congratulations to everyone involved, administration, staff, teachers, principals, students, for another successful year in Sumner County Schools. It's great. I missed the graduation. I think in 15 years, that's the second one I've missed. But work just held me behind. I just couldn't get there. I want to just give a shout out to our HR department. I really think that it's a fantastic thing that this EPP thing is finally, I know they've worked hard on it for a long time and they finally got it done, got it in there, and I think it's a great thing for us. You know, the thing that I was sitting here thinking about, that we talk a lot about teachers and they're very, very important. We talk a lot about administration, they're very, very important, but none of you get a job without the HR department. So, and they don't get enough recognition. So I want to give a shout out to Mr. Ott. He's doing a fantastic job and we appreciate him. So with that, y'all have a happy summer. We're adjourned.